Hi everyone, my name is Avery Brenna Crumrine and welcome back to The Follow Through. This episode is going to be a little more personal because I want to talk about something that I think a lot of ambitious people experience, but almost nobody says out loud. And I think ambition can become really lonely at times, especially in college, because there's this weird feeling when your life starts moving in a different direction than the people around you. Like there are nights everyone's going out and you're just sitting there editing videos, answering emails, recording podcast episodes, and working on something, thinking about your future. And just wondering if you're wasting your college experience. And honestly, I've had that thought every day. Like, what am I doing wrong? Because college culture is very centered around being social all the time, going out constantly, being around people, and just kind of living in the moment. And meanwhile, my brain is thinking about building things, ideas, goals, opportunities, speaking, books. And sometimes those two worlds feel really disconnected for me. And I think that's the part of why ambition can feel isolating, because you're in this weird in-between stage where your current life doesn't fully match the person you're trying to become yet. You're building something that other people can't fully see yet, and that can feel really lonely sometimes, especially when you're sacrificing things in the present for something that you hope matters later. And I think people underestimate how mentally consuming it is to care deeply about something, because when you really care about building something, it follows you everywhere. You could be sitting in class thinking about ideas. You can be out with people thinking about work that you still need to do. You could be trying to relax while your brain is still thinking about your future. And I honestly think that this is one of the weirdest parts about ambition, because it's hard to fully turn it off. Even when I'm trying to be present sometimes, parts of my brain is still thinking, what should I post tomorrow? What episode should I record? Who should I reach out to? I have like a million people to get back to on my email right now. Am I falling behind? And I think ambitious people carry a level of pressure internally that other people don't always see. Because externally, it can look like you're just working on projects or posting online or building something. But internally, it feels much deeper than that. It feels tied to your future and your identity, your potential, and the life that you want to create. And I think that's why it becomes so emotional sometimes, because it's not just work. It feels personal. And honestly, one of the hardest parts is that there's usually no immediate reward in the beginning. People don't really celebrate you while you're building quietly. They celebrate outcomes. They celebrate success after it becomes visible. But there's this whole phase before when you're just alone with your own vision. And that phase can really mess with your head because nobody fully sees what you see yet. So you start questioning yourself. You start wondering if what you're doing is too much, or you're wondering if you care too much about this idea, or you wonder if you should just relax more and stop thinking so far ahead all the time. And sometimes I genuinely envy people who seem fully content just living in the moment, because my brain naturally thinks long-term constantly. I'm always thinking, where is this leading? What could this become? What should I be building? And how do I create something meaningful? And I think that mindset can create distance socially, because not everyone around you is thinking that way in this stage of life. I just think ambition changes what consumes your mind. And when your mind is consumed by different things than the people around you, you can start feeling disconnected even if you're technically not alone. And I think social media intensifies this so much, because now you constantly see what looks like everyone else having the perfect social life and everyone together, everyone out, everyone surrounded by friends. And meanwhile, you're sitting alone editing something late at night, wondering if any of this is ever going to matter. And I think that people have this assumption that ambitious people always feel super confident and driven. And honestly, I think a lot of ambitious people are actually just deeply anxious. They overthink constantly and pressure themselves constantly, and they question themselves constantly, and they just keep moving anyways. I think there's also this grief that comes with growth, because nobody really talks about that part either. Because growth sounds exciting online, but in reality, growth can feel uncomfortable and disorienting, and sometimes your interests and priorities and what fulfills you changes. So naturally, certain relationships stop feeling as aligned anymore. And this isn't because anything is bad, you just sometimes realize that you're becoming different versions of yourselves. And that's really hard because naturally we want belonging. We want people who understand us, people who think similarly, people who support things that we care deeply about. And sometimes when you're building something, it feels like fewer people around you fully understand why you care so much, especially when there's no guarantee yet that it's even going to work. And I think uncertainty is exhausting too, because when you're ambitious, you're often sacrificing for a future that doesn't even exist yet. And that's scary because you're putting time into things that may or may not pay off. You're saying no to experiences for goals that aren't guaranteed. You're believing in a vision that hasn't materialized yet. And there are definitely moments where that can feel incredibly lonely, especially when you start comparing yourself to everyone else around you. And comparison is dangerous in this stage because everybody's timelines are different. Some people are building careers while some people are building relationships. Some people are just figuring themselves out while some people are just trying to survive college. And social media compresses it all together and makes it feel like everybody has life figured out except for you. And I honestly don't think that people feel as certain as they look online. I think a lot of people right now are just as confused right now. I think a lot of people feel disconnected and a lot of people feel pressure. I think a lot of people feel lonely. They just don't say it out loud because everybody is trying to look okay. And I think ambitious people especially struggle admitting loneliness because they feel like they chose this path. Like if you choose to build something, then you can't complain about the sacrifices that come with it. But I don't think acknowledging loneliness means you regret your ambition. I just think it makes you human. And I think that there's another side to this too, because even though ambition can feel isolating, I think ignoring what deeply matters to you eventually becomes isolating too. Because ignoring your ideas and your goals and the things that you genuinely care about creates a different kind of loneliness. The loneliness of feeling disconnected from yourself. And personally, I think that feeling is worse. I think one of the saddest things is when people slowly abandon parts of themselves just because it feels easier socially. Because eventually you're going to start feeling resentment towards your own life. You're going to start feeling stuck and unfulfilled and wondering what would have happened if you actually tried. And I personally don't want that. Even when this feels hard sometimes, I still know that I'd rather try. I would rather build things and create things and pursue ideas that matter to me, even if it does feel lonely during certain times. And I think eventually you find people who are similar. People who understand delayed gratification and people who care about creating meaningful things. People who understand why your brain works the way it does. But I think before you find those people, there's usually a phase where things feel lonely first. A phase where you feel caught between who you are now and who you're becoming. And maybe that phase is more normal than people think. Because I'm honestly still figuring it out too. But I wanted to make this episode because I think there are people listening right now who secretly feel disconnected and assume something is wrong with them. And maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe your priorities are just shifting. Maybe your life is just changing, or your brain is pulling you towards something bigger than your current environment understands yet. And maybe that discomfort is part of growth. So if you've been feeling lonely lately because your priorities feel different than the people around you, or because your brain feels consumed by goals and ideas of the future, or you maybe just feel disconnected sometimes when you're around people, I just want you to know, I really don't think you're the only one. I think a lot more people feel this than they admit. They just don't say it out loud. And maybe conversations like this matter because of that. Because ambition can feel lonely. But feeling misunderstood doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. It just means that your life is changing. And maybe part of following through is learning to keep building anyways, even during the lonely parts. Because at the end of the day, intention doesn't change anything. Putting it into action does.